Daniel. Uh, so, so, hello everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time for attending this session today. My name is Deepthi Goguri, and today we are going to talk about MDB internals. First of all, I would like to say thank you, Daniel, for having me again today. Um, so, so I forgot to mention my bio data slide. So let me go ahead and just give you a couple of information about me. I'm a database administrator having several years of experience in managing SQL Server and databases. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft certified solution expert. And also I did my master's in computer technology at Eastern Illinois University. And I'm a co-organizer for a couple of user groups. I'm a co-organizer for Microsoft Data and AI South Florida user group and Microsoft Data Women in Technology. I support and I volunteer for Microsoft Data Women in Technology user group. And also I'm a co-organizer for Microsoft Data Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group as well. And I do blog for dbanuggets.com. That's my website, and you can go ahead and look into it if you would like. Mostly I write on SQL Server stuff. And if you would like to contact with me later. At DB Nuggets is my user ID for the Twitter. It would be an honor to get in touch with you. And I'm sorry I did not have my introduction slide. I just missed it somehow. So what are we going to discuss in this session today? Basically, we are going just an overview of what is TempDB and what does it have in it, and how does the TempDB transaction log, like what happens inside the transaction log of TempDB database and the type of TempDB objects we have. We'll go ahead and look into the TempDB contention, the problem that we have with the TempDB, and how do we need to solve it, and what did Microsoft did from their end to solve this particular contention issues going on with the TempDB database, and what is the main improvement in the latest version of SQL Server, and what are the recommendations. So as you know, TempDB is a system database, and it is used to store the temporary bits of information. And it is just similar to the other kind of databases, like all the other user databases. When you when you see the pages, table, and the metadata, everything is the same, but it is minimally logged. It is in the simple recovery mode. It is minimally logged because nobody cares what's in there. Once we restart the SQL Server, MDB gets created, right? It gets recreated every time we restart the SQL Server. And until you don't care about any data inside it, you can even create the user tables, right? But until you are not caring about the data, once you restart it, everything is gone and it gets created. You know, brand new MDB gets created. And it is highly concurrent, meaning every database inside the instance wanted to use it. Like it's like everybody's best friend, but nobody wants to truly know about MTP. And per instance, we just have one database, one MDB database, and it should be configured based upon our workloads, right? How much each and every database inside our instance uses the MDB. Based upon that, you need to configure the files, data files for the MDB. So we are going to look into that come in the coming slides. So why it is so unique, right? We have all the other system databases, but why MDB is so unique? Because it is explicitly used by us, by everyone, by all the users or programmers to create the temporary tables, and implicitly also, even without us interfering it. Um, some of the objects does use internally, and if you create any triggers or snapshot isolation, if you turn it on, that means you are enabling version store inside the MDB. And if you have these triggers, you're also using the MDB because version store will be enabled as well. And logging is completely different. We are going to see about the login. It is so minimally logging, just like the other simple databases. And it is a shared resource, right? Everybody wants to use it. That's why it is so unique. And MDB is very important because on a regular basis, we do use MDB. If you are running any stored procedure or any query, And if you wanted to sort the results, right? If SQL Server will go ahead and allocate a certain amount of memory, which is known as memory grant, even before the query goes to the execution phase, the memory grants are allocated to the query. But once the query goes to the execution phase, if the memory grant that has been allocated is not enough, then then and also if that particular query has to do sorts in the memory, and if that memory grant is not enough, it will go ahead and split into the tempdb. It will go ahead and use the tempdb as the temporary storage to sort the results. So that's when we'll use the tempdb. Like if the memory is not sufficient, then it will go ahead and use the temporary space inside the tempdb. And if you are storing any intermediate queries results, right, then that will go to the tempdb as well. And if you have these spools inside your execution plans, and if we cannot sort and do the hashes inside the memory, then that will go to the tempdb as well. Those operators will use tempdb. So how does tempdb gets created? Once we restart the SQL Server, the first thing that will happen is the master database gets opened. And while the master database is open, that means inside the master database, we have all these login information, right? So we are allowing the users to connect to the SQL Server at this point of time once the master database is open. And while all the databases are being, getting available, all of these users will be able to connect to the server, but then they cannot access TempDB. So while the TempDB is getting created, if any of the users are running any queries that is actually creating any objects inside the TempDB, they should wait. The query doesn't fail, but the query have to wait until the TempDB gets created. So once the master is open, all of these connections will be connecting. But at the same time, model database will be available. And once the master database is available, the TempDB will also get created, same as the model database. What all properties we have inside the model database, based upon that, TempDB will be created. So how does TempDB get created from the model database? Will it create exactly the same like the user databases, or is it something different? Right? So once the model database is available, the first thing that happens is SQL Server will go ahead and exclusively lock model and TempDB databases until the TempDB gets created. At this point of time, connections are allowed because master database is already available, right? So at this point of time, all the connections are allowed, but no one can use model or TempDB because they are exclusively locked. And now TempDB gets created. So what will happen first is the primary data file gets created based upon model database. And once the primary file gets created, one extent at a time is copied from the model database to the primary data file. And if you have any objects inside the model database, like user databases, like for example, you did not mention the context of the database properly, and you created any objects inside the model database, then at all of these objects, right, the user objects, which you did not realize that they are there inside the model database, those will also get copied into the TempDB database. So why I'm saying this is because if your TempDB is taking long time to create, you need to go ahead and check what's all in there inside the model database. And once the primary data file is created, if you have already set up a bigger data file for the TempDB, if you configure that, then the increase of the size for the primary data file will be generated. It will be increased based upon the configuration you have created. And the log file will be created at this point of time. And then later, after creating the transaction log file, then later it will go ahead and create any NDF file, any additional data files that you have for the TempDB database. So how can we see that inside inside the error log, right? While your SQL Server is restarting, when you see the error log from bottom, like the first step, if you see, it is saying starting up the database model. That means the first database that gets opened is the master, and then the model database will be opened based upon the model, right? If you see the second step there, it is creating the temporary database. At that particular stage, primary data file will be created, and all of those primary data file will be created, and all of the extents, one extent at a time, will be copied from the model database. And then when you come to the third step, starting up the TempDB, at that particular stage, the additional NDF files will be generated. So at the second step, primary data file, a copying of all the one extent at a time, and then transaction log gets created at the second stage. But at the third stage, NDF files get created. So if you're seeing gap in between the first step and the second step, right, that means that something is going on with the model database. Something else is there inside the model database. You need to go ahead and check what all objects are there, why it is taking so long time to create the TempDB database. But that's how we can see inside the error log. So what's inside transaction log? As I told you, it is minimally logged. After images for the inserts and updates are not logged, like the regular databases which are in the full recovery mode. Inside the transaction log of a regular database, right, of the full recovery mode database, we have those. If we change something, like if you update a record, right, the previous value and the after value will be recorded inside the transaction log. But for the TempDB, those things doesn't happen, because most of the time, um, uh, like we do have only heap tables most of the time inside the TempDB, and it is minimally logged. So what will be logged here is just that it do not have to save the. Uh, so what will happen with the transaction log is it doesn't. Um, so once it commits, right, it do not have to write everything into the transaction log, because there is a reason why. Because once you restart the SQL server, TempDB doesn't have to have all of the information in it, right? We do create a brand new database, so it doesn't care. We do not care much. So it is very minimally logged, and it is a simple recovery database, right? So and so you might be thinking, so we are not logging anything, right? So why do we even need a transaction log for TempDB, right? For the So transaction log is used for two purposes. One is for the crash recovery, like if there is if something happens and if you have to recover the database, the media recovery. For the media recovery and for the crash recovery, we need the transaction log. But for the rollback purposes also, we need a transaction log. So inside the TempDB, the main reason why we have the transaction log is when you roll back, right? When you roll back, we need to be able to get that previous value. So that is a reason, like that is the ACID properties of the transaction, right? The rollback purposes is one of the ACID properties. So uh, so that is the reason we have transaction log inside the TempDB. And lazy commits happens here. That means we do not have to write like the transaction log doesn't have to write it to the disk before the commits happens. So these are lazy commits. We do not care if the data is, if the data is written inside the transaction log or not. And normal checkpoint process doesn't happen, like the regular checkpoint process, right? When you run a checkpoint process, like not when you run, but SQL Server will run the checkpoint process automatically every couple of minutes. So when the checkpoint process happens, SQL Server will exclude TempDB database. It doesn't do checkpoint process on the TempDB database until you go ahead and manually run the checkpoint process. Like you go ahead into the management studio and do a checkpoint, right? Checkpoint, run, execute it. When you do that hard checkpoint, then the checkpoint process happens inside the TempDB, which might take in a while. But checkpoint process regularly, it will go ahead and truncate the transaction log, just like the other simple databases. And the lazy writer, lazy writer will go ahead and it will flush out the least recently used pages from to the disk, right? So those will happen regularly. There is no change with the lazy writer. Um, and there are a couple of internal objects that TempDB uses. Those get created automatically. Like we do not go ahead and create those internal objects. We are going to talk about that later. So uh, the allocation, like the logging that happens for these internal objects are allocation logging, like how many extents we are allocating. Those kind of logging only happens. And as I told you, TempDB doesn't require redo process, because redo is only required when we need to get the database from the crash recovery, right? But we do need the transaction log for the rollback purposes. So what does TempDB database store inside it? There are a couple of objects that it will store, like temporary tables, hash word tables, cursors. It will use the TempDB online index operations, like online index operations, right? We mentioned the sort in TempDB specifically, but if you do not use sort in TempDB specifically, it will go ahead and sort the index operations inside the user database itself. Do you know that? Like many people doesn't know, everybody thinks like it will go ahead, and most of them thinks like it will go ahead and sort in TempDB, but until you mention it as sort in TempDB, it will go ahead and do those sorts inside the user database itself. And table valued functions, they use TempDB. Table variables. Table variables also, like when we say table variables, most of them think those table variables are stored inside the memory, but no, they are stored inside the TempDB. And spools, if you have spool operators inside your execution plans, those will use the TempDB. Triggers, right? When you have triggers, those um, versioning store is enabled inside the TempDB when you use these triggers. And sorts use, like if the sorting doesn't have enough memory to sort in the memory, then it will go ahead and sort inside the TempDB. As I said, the index operations, it will use the TempDB. DBCC check DB, right? When you do the DBCC check DB, behind the scenes, there will be a snapshot of the database generated, right? So that snapshot will be also stored in TempDB. And statistics update, this will use TempDB as well. So there are two types of different objects we have inside TempDB. User objects that we go ahead and create, and internal objects. We do not create it, but our queries make them create behind the scenes, like inside the execution plan. These internal objects get created. When you see the user objects, the temporary tables, as you know, we create temporary tables for the temporary storage, right? The table variables. Inside table variables, table valued function, the return values will also come under the table variables, table valued parameters, temporary procedures. There are certain kind of temporary procedure, meaning the query text behind the stored procedures will be saved inside the temp table. And the user defined objects, like if you do not care about the data, you can just go ahead and create tables inside the TempDB, but then who wanted to do that, right? When we restarted, everything is gone. So, but still there is an option, you can do it. And when you see the internal objects, right? We do not go ahead and manually say, create sort, create work table. We cannot do those. Sorts are generated inside our execution plan. Work tables, these kind of work tables, right? Work tables are mainly created um, by the professionals who are really working inside the Microsoft product. Like if they are working on the engine itself, the Microsoft engine, SQL Server engine, even they need certain amount of space where they can store the temporary information, but they cannot go ahead and create temp table, right? They cannot do that because they are doing within the engine. So in that case, they do create these work tables. They doesn't get stored, um, they doesn't get stored inside the TempDB, but then they use memory. And the other thing is work files and version store. Like I said, version store is enabled when you have those triggers, snapshot isolation. If you have that on, then if you turn on the snapshot isolation and if you see the tempdb growing, sometimes you might not understand, but go ahead and check if your snapshot isolation is turned on, because that might blow up if you are doing, more operations. And there are three DMVs, especially you can go ahead and monitor uh, these objects that are getting created by using sysdmdb file space usage, sysdmdb session space usage, and sysdmdb task space usage. So these are at the file level, session level, and the task level. You can go ahead and check how many objects are being created. So let's talk about the contention. This is the main important thing. Like this is the main reason like why I created this session, right? So contention is there are like different kinds of contention we have. Contention meaning like MDB is everybody's database, right? So all of the databases wanted to go ahead and continuously create the objects simultaneously at the same time. So while we go ahead and create these objects simultaneously, many users trying to create objects at the same time, there is this contention that gets generated at this on the special pages. We will be talking about those special pages. Special pages are nothing but they are the they are the system pages, like IAM page, CAM page, SCAM page. We do have these special pages on every single data file. So if you have two, three data files, right? Three data files, let's say. So you have those special pages on every single data file. So IAM, GAM, SCAM page on all of those three data files. So if you have one data file, right? So, and we are trying to create multiple objects at the same time. Whenever we create any object, all of these requests should go in a queue, and they should modify the special pages. Like these special pages contain the information of whether they have the extents available, because even before the objects gets created, first of all we need to go ahead, the request have to go ahead and get that extent that it needs to create that object, right? So while doing that on these special pages, while updating these, inserting this information, there is this contention at the same time created by all of these requests. So that is known as object allocation contention, which is especially caused on these special pages. And let's go ahead and talk about these contention. So as I told you, each and every data file have the header, like header contains the page number 0 is always a header. PFS page is always page number 1. GAM page is always page number 2. SGAM is always page number 3. So what is this PFS page, right? PFS page contains the information about how much um, page free space we have for the next 8087 pages. So once the 8087 pages kick in, there is one more PFS page. In the same way, there is a GAM page. But the GAM meaning a global allocation map page, which will have the information like bitmap values for the uniform extents for the next approximately 64,000 extents until it reaches another GAM page. So basically it contains all the information like whether that extent, uniform extent is usable or is it already taken. Like how does that save the information is in the form of bitmap values. One meaning it is free. If it has 0, that means it is not free, it is already taken. And the SCAM page is similar for the next 64,000 extents. It will go ahead and check for whether the mixed extent, whether the normal, like just a moment. Uh, okay, so for the next 64,000 extents, right? Whether this, whether the mixed extent is usable or is it already taken? 1 meaning it is free, it can be taken, and 0 means it is already full. Um, my headset is linked up to.
Yeah, we're losing you right there. I guess we just lost you. Nope, can't hear you right now.
Okay.
Oh, can hear you now.
You can hear me now, right?
Right
Because
now, yep.
these headphones, it will it will connect to both of the phone as well as the computer at the same time. So my phone is ringing, so I just put it in airplane mode. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that.
Hey,
So
no problem.
SGAM meaning, yeah, let's start. SGAM meaning that it is specifically for the mixed extents. Like whenever the object needs only 1 or 2 pages, we do not have to go ahead and allocate a complete you know uh, um, extent. We do not have to do that because an extent is a set of 8 KB pages together is known as an extent. um, so if an object needs only 1 or 2 pages, we do not have to allocate a complete extent. We can just go ahead and allocate 2 pages from the mixed extent. So the mixed extent meaning multiple objects can use a single extent, or 3 objects, 4 objects, no matter, they only can use like mixed extent until they reach 8 pages. They can use the mixed extents. Once they cross the 8 page mark, they will go ahead and get the uniform extent allocated. So for the next 64 extents, um, it will go ahead and check whether the mixed extent is usable, which is having the which have the bitmap value of 1, and if it is already used, it have zeros. So why I am telling you all this, right? So whenever you have the object allocation contention on these pages, and then you go ahead and check in your DMVs, what is going on with this object allocation contention? Do my TempDB have this contention, right? So whenever you see that, you will be able to see these kind of like 2:1:1 kind of information in your DMV. So how do we read that? Database ID for the TempDB is always true. File ID meaning the MDF file, right? That the file ID is 1 here. And,
And we lost you again. Nope, still can't hear you. Nope.
so, uh, so if you are seeing the contention on the PFS page, you will see as 2:1:1. If you are seeing the contention on the GAM page, which is like a complete extent, right? Uniform extent, you will see 2:1:2 because that's the page number. GAM page have page number 2. And if you see the contention on SGAM page, you will see 2:1:3. So what is this object allocation contention? As I told you, every data page have these metadata pages, like special pages, the IAM, GAM, SGAM page for each and every data file, right? Um, so for example, let's say there is a store procedure which is running in parallelism, meaning we have 2 threads, and that the store procedure is requesting for a page from the TempDB, right? So all of these requests, like let's say many requests are coming, right? All of these requests has to go ahead and sit in the latch queue. Latch queue meaning SQL Server will go ahead and generate a serializable queue because we have these parallelism queries running. So it cannot catch up with all of these at the same time because only single request can touch those special pages at the same time. Not more than one can touch it. or modify it. So that is the reason SQL Server will go ahead and put these in the queue known as latch queue. It is a serializable queue. So all of these requests have to sit in there. One request at a time can go ahead and insert those values, like it is getting that extent, it have to return into these um, pages to get that extent and go away. And the next request come, you know, get that page right where it is getting from, go away. In that way, all these requests have to go through the latch queue. Just imagine if more and more requests are coming in to get those allocations for the objects that they have to be created inside the TempDB. If there is only one data file, right? We have to, all of these requests have to wait for so long time to clear up this latch, clear up this queue, right? So that is the reason if we go ahead and create the multiple files, let's say we created in another NDF file, which is a secondary data file, they also have the same kind of structure, right? Same kind of special pages in it, header, PFS, GAM, SGAM, right? The same. So if we do that, now we have two data files for the same TempDB. So we divided and then we created two equal data files so that now these multiple threads, query threads can nicely come and they can nicely share the, share the resources. They can directly go into the latch queue and now they don't have to wait so long. Like just imagine if you go ahead and create couple of more data pages, they don't even have to wait in the latch queue. The request can come, take the uh, take the page that it wanted to have. um, Once the page get allocated or extent get allocated, it can go ahead and do its job. So we do not have to wait. So solving the object level contention is actually very easy. It can be completely get solved by creating these multiple data files inside the TempDB. So there are a couple of advancements that has happened with SQL Server 2016. So there are a couple of trace flags that we have to make sure we enable if you are before SQL Server 2016, because in SQL Server 2016, these true trace flags are enabled by default. But before SQL Server 2016, they are not enabled. You need to manually go ahead and make sure these two trace flags are enabled. So what are these trace flags, right? Trace flag 1117 will make sure, like if you have multiple files in the same file group, if one file auto grows, the all of the files will auto grow at the same time, just to make sure everything is on the say with the same space. Everything is having same space, right? Each and every file. I will tell you why we need to do that. But trace flag 1118 will be resolved, um, because what it will do is once you enable it, it will just turn off the mixed extent allocations, because most of the time, we use more pages regularly. So if the mixed extent allocation is just turned on, they have to do more and more inserts, and then to get those allocation of each and every page from the mixed extent, it will cause more contention, right? So if we just turned it off and then make everything as uniform extents, that will solve the problem of inserting like the information of where we are getting that extent from onto those special pages. That will resolve the um, object allocation contention. So why we need to have multiple files of the same size? So what happens is, if there is like if we do not have the equal amount of sizes for all of these files, let's say, once you add a file with a completely different size, right? An NDF file. Now what SQL Server will do is, instead of going ahead and using both of the files, first what it will do is um, it will go ahead and directly go to the second NDF file, because there is more space into it, right? That it is brand newly created. It has so much of space. So until it evens out with the primary data file, like if the primary data file is 50% full already, it will continuously go ahead and insert and use the secondary data file until it becomes 50%. The proportional fill algorithm, that's known as proportional fill algorithm, that is being used, which is like not optimal, because though we added the new file, we are still only using the NDF file until it is equally proportionate with the primary data file, right? So instead, what SQL Server will recommends is, like, if you create multiple files, like you have let's say you have 50 GB, like 100 GB primary file. Let's say if you are creating one more file, then go ahead and make it as, like, if you are creating two files, then divided it by two. Like if you're creating 4 files, then divide the primary file by 4 to equally allocate the space between uh, those data pages, like not the data pages, the files, those data files, right? So in that way, if they are equally created, like with the same amount of space, now that proportional fill algorithm can convert into round robin algorithm, meaning first it will go to the first file, then the second file, then the third file, then the fourth file, again come back to the first, second, third, and fourth, which is like round robin algorithm, meaning it will use all of the files evenly, right? Not one file will be used more and the rest of the files are not abandoned. All of them will be used at the same time, like evenly it will use everything. And some people have the questions like, if I go ahead and um, add these additional files, do I need to restart the SQL Server? Like, you do not have to, but if you create those additional files, right? If you already have a primary file, which is 50% full, and you added a couple of more files, then as I told you, the proportional fill algorithm, it will go ahead and do that. Like it will use the additional files without touching the primary file until all of those files reaches the same percent, which is not ideal, right? Because we also want that primary file to be used. Anyway, once you restart the SQL Server, now it have the ability to go ahead and do the round robin algorithm, but it is always suggestible for you to go ahead and restart it so that it can evenly use all of those files. And there are a couple of more advancements that has happened in SQL Server 2014 SP3, SQL Server 2016 SP1 CU9, 2016 SP2 CU1, 2017 CU7. Oh my God, it's very hard to pronounce. I don't even remember, right? So what are the enhancements happen in those SQL Server versions? As I told you, the proportional fill algorithm, right? It will turn into the round robin algorithm. Now, how does that round robin algorithm work? If it have to allocate, right? First allocation will go to the first file, the second one go to the second file, third, fourth, and then again, it will go to the first file again to touch that second PFS page. So basically, previously, I'm talking about the enhancement here, but what happens to the previous before the enhancement is these allocations, right? It will go ahead and it will go ahead and use the first file, then the second file, then the third, then the fourth, and again go to the PFS page, first PFS page. But instead of doing that, what they did is, why should we only use the PFS first page, right? Let's go ahead and do the round robin across the PFS page of each and every file, meaning it will go ahead and use the allocation 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it will go ahead and use the PFS2 page instead of using the PFS1, because that's doing the round robin algorithm across all the PFS pages inside each file. Then it will go and use the second PFS page on the second file, then the third file, then the fourth, and then come again back to the PFS page one, based upon how many PFS pages you have, um, to make sure we are using all of those PFS pages instead of just focusing on the first PFS page. That's the enhancement. And by creating the multiple data files, right, that will completely solve the object allocation contention. That contention, solving that contention is not of a big deal, but the big deal is metadata contention, because as Microsoft has continuously evolved by resolving some of the metadata contention issues. But then if you fix one thing, some other thing got broke. So let's go ahead and see what's with the metadata contention. So the metadata contention is nothing but a contention on the pages on like there are a couple of metadata pages inside the like metadata tables actually. So uh, to these pages inside those objects will actually track the table metadata. So for example, if you created a temp table, right? Um, some system tables have to store that information, like what is the table type, like how many columns does this temp table have, what are the uh, data types that it have, and so that kind of information needs to be stored somewhere inside the tempdb system tables. So this particular contention is on the contention of those system tables. Like whenever you create, whenever you update, whenever you delete the schema of that particular temp table, that metadata information has to be updated into these system tables as well. So again, as I said, like as many requests are coming in, all of these requests have to go ahead and enter this information into system tables of the tempdb, which again cause the contention. And it is a little bit difficult to resolve this. How do we explain this contention, right? Like I said, there are a couple of metadata tables inside the, like not only the tempdb, right? Each and every database, like user databases also have these metadata tables. Like whenever you create any table, all of these metadata information um, has to be inserted into those system tables. But as the tables that we create inside the user databases, those are persistent tables, right? We do not go ahead and delete them all the time. So they are consistent on the disk. So we do not have to update the metadata tables like we update it to the tempdb, right? So firstly, like they have later introduced the temp table caching. But before introducing temp table caching, what happened with the metadata tables is like all of these requests coming in to create the temp table. So before creating the temp table, they need to go ahead and insert that into the metadata tables, which again cause the contention on these metadata tables. But once they actually um, created the temp table caching, now what is this temp table caching? Um, they have made an improvement like to cache these temporary table metadata inside the memory. Like if you go ahead and delete the temp table, right? It will not delete the temp table. It will go ahead and just delete the data inside the temp table, but still put that schema of the temp table inside the cache. That is known as temp table caching. But they thought like instead of deleting, right? Instead of completely deleting, let's go ahead and put that in the cache so that we do not have to go ahead and each time go ahead and insert the create information into the metadata tables. But they did that and it solved on inserts into the metadata tables. But how about deleting those tables completely from the cache, right? Once we delete, even that delete information should also go ahead and the clear up the metadata inside this metadata tables, right? So they have done for just temp table caching to just avoid the inserts, but then while deletes happen, even inside the memory, a cleanup process should kick in, right? To clean up these um, temp tables from the cache. And that even have to um, delete couple of the metadata related to those objects. It caused metadata contention again. So what did they do? In SQL Server 2016, they did this. They optimized the algorithm within the SQL Server inside the SQL Server engine. So the old algorithm, while deleting that metadata information of specific temp tables. Um, so while they go ahead, like while the process go ahead and delete that metadata from the metadata tables, first what happens is the old algorithm we are seeing here, it will go ahead and just acquire the exclusive page latch exclusive lock. First, directly it will put an exclusive lock so that nobody else can actually go ahead and acquire any more locks, right? Then it will go ahead and scan all the metadata rows related to that particular temp table that we are trying to delete, like the metadata of the temp table. And if the rows found right inside those metadata tables, it will go ahead and delete the metadata tables and then release the exclusive lock that they have acquired. That is the old algorithm, but in the SQL Server 2016, they really optimized it. They thought like, why should we even put the exclusive lock even before knowing if we have the metadata related to that table or not? So let's just go ahead and do the shared lock for now because we want even the other clear up process also run at the same time. So that helped a bit. So they put the shade lock and then they scan for the metadata rows that we need to delete. If the rows found, then go ahead and put the exclusive lock. Then go ahead and put the exclusive lock, page latch exclusive, and delete the metadata rows, and then release the exclusive lock. But if there are no metadata rows found, then just go ahead and release the page latch um, shade lock that they have acquired, which really helped a bit. But then we do have some other problems as well. So let's go ahead and see that. I would like to thank Pam Lahul for loaning me this algorithm. So this problem, like this, this optimization that they have done for this latching algorithm pretty much helped. So they went ahead and they also introduced this feature they, into all of these SQL servers: 2017 CU7, 2016 SP1 CU9, and 2016 SP2 CU1 as well, because it helped. So the other improvements, right? It did not completely remove. We still have the shade lock, and it's not pretty good. So what they did is they have changed a bit of how these temporary table metadata cleanup process, they changed a bit. So they said like whenever anybody is actually deleting the temp table, once the stored procedure completed delete, please do not make it as an operation, like do not delete anything. Instead, go ahead and put that deleted metadata table that's in the memory, right? Just go ahead and put that in the deleted list. Once that deleted list is completed, like what they did is like if any of the requests are coming in to allocate a page, like if any requests are coming in to create any temp tables, right? All of those requests should first go ahead and clean these objects from the deleted list first before getting allocation for creating those temp objects that they wanted to create. So it's like a homework to them. If you want something, just go ahead and delete that, then you'll get this. It's like that. But then if that is happening, right, that costs so much of weights for all these processes because they have to come in, clean up these objects, and then go ahead and get the allocation they need to create the object. That caused the wait times. So what they did is instead of doing that, like whenever there is a memory pressure, right? Um, Now all of these, like whenever there is a memory pressure, also these deleted objects will go ahead and fetch the fetch and delete the metadata. Like those processes, all of them should go that. And apart from that, whenever there is a memory pressure, it will go ahead and delete the metadata, go ahead and fetch it from the metadata tables again. We'll put a shared log and then go ahead and delete it. But then that also caused an issue because all of those requests have to wait until they come delete, like the regular process, right? They have to wait. So instead of doing that, they thought, why not? Let's go ahead and put a thread, especially known as helper thread, um, per CPU core, let's am I telling it correctly? Am I remembering correctly? No, it's per NUMA node, right? They put exclusively one helper thread per NUMA node. And what that helper thread is, all it does is it will go ahead and continuously delete these metadata objects. Whenever it have to delete, it will go ahead and fetch the data, and then it will go ahead and delete the metadata information, which is like all of the other regular requests will just go ahead and get those allocations to create those temporary objects. And this helper thread is only specifically focusing on the deleted list. It will go ahead and uh, clean up all these metadata information. And that's this particular improvement has happened in SQL Server 2017 CU5, SQL Server 2016 SP1 CU8, and SQL Server 2017 SP3 as well. So there is one more type of contention. So we have placed these temporary metadata, right? We have set this cleaning up process, but then the contention which have on the memory objects associated with this temp table cache. So we have placed all these temporary metadata information inside the cache, right? Even that caused the contention. It did not completely cleared up. So whenever you see these kind of like CMEM thread weights or SOS cache store spin weights, spin lock weights, there might be a couple of other reasons why you see these kind of weights, but then uh, they can be also like you can also see these kind of weights when you have that temporary table cache contention. So what they did is in SQL Server 2019, they thought of getting that feature, right? The memory optimized in-memory OLTP kind of feature. They also thought of putting that into temp tables, this metadata temp tables. So what they did is they memory optimized metadata tables. So they put those tables inside the memory itself, because that will actually completely resolve the issue, because everything happens inside the memory. We do not have to flush to the disk at all. Now, why? Because anyway, if we restart the SQL Server, right, everything will be flushed out and we create the temp table from scratch. So there is no latching or locking of these metadata pages, and no logging of these operations also happens anyway. But because of this memory optimized metadata tables, right, recently, very recently, like couple of weeks ago, there were an issue that um, uh, one of the professional, he mentioned it in the Stack Overflow, like he enabled the memory optimized metadata tables, and he have been seeing the blew up, the memory blew up going on. So Microsoft is already working on it. That's what they said. Um, so we have to see how they are working on that as well. So the recommendations, when you come to the recommendations, right, to solve the object allocation contention completely, you can just go ahead and create equally sized multiple um, data files, MDF, NDF files to solve that object allocation contention. Make sure they are equally sized, right? Because of what we discussed with round robin algorithm, to make that kick in from the proportional algorithm, we need to make sure we have equally sized files. So where do you have to start, right? So just start with one file per core, and usually up to 8 files. But there is like it's not so like it's uncommon, but some people have more than that files, like 60 files, 64. But depending upon your workload, right, you do not need such so many number of data files. You can check with start with one, go to 8, and check with how much usage are you doing with the TempDB. Enable trace flag 1117 and 1118 if you are SQL Server 2014 or below SQL Server 2016, right? And if you are in SQL Server 2016 and later, you do not have to worry about it because these are already by default, they are already enabled. And the other thing is, if you created any temp table, right, just do not go ahead and in between your store procedures or anywhere, once you create the temp table, do not alter the temp table later and create the indexes, because what will happen is if you do that, the metadata that's inside the memory that we saved, right, that metadata will be invalidated because the altering of the temp table once you create that will invalidate the metadata object inside the cache. So what happened for the latest versions of SQL Server is they have actually created a new inline syntax where you can directly go ahead and create the index along with the create table statement, temp table statement. You can go ahead and create the index at the same time so that you don't have to create later, alter later to invalidate the metadata object inside the cache. And avoid using temp tables inside the ad hoc batches, because if you use ad hoc batches, um, these temp table can only be cached when it can be when it can actually how can I say that? So when your query ID is actually linked up to the plan ID, then only you can save these temp table caches, because ad hoc queries do not have plan IDs, right? So you cannot save these uh, metadata temp tables. You need to have stored procedures, because that stored procedure ID, query ID will have the plan ID. And if you have plan ID, then the temp table caches can be stored. Don't truncate the temp tables because that will go ahead and affect the metadata operation. That will go ahead and invalidate the object if you truncate it. And for lower versions of SQL Server, like I said, there is only one file, right? They did not make it as a default to create the multiple data files for your TempDB. For the newer versions, like they made it as a default. But if you're on the older version, just go ahead and make sure to add the new files. If you have a bigger primary data file, just go ahead and divide that into how many files you want. Make sure they are equally sized, right? Um, so that the round robin algorithm can kick in. And I would like to give special thanks to Bob Ward and Pamela Hood for giving me like wonderful resources, and they supported me so much to go ahead and prepare for the presentation. They gave me all the resources I need to put in this presentation together. So kudos to both of them. And if you wanted to learn more, like a 3.5 hour session about the TempDB. Bob Ward, couple of years ago, he presented especially on TempDB for the past summit. So that's I mentioned the link here. And even Pamela Hood have actually gave the presentation for 8KB couple of months ago. Even I put that link over here. So if you wanted to know more about TempDB, follow these resources. And I would like to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present for your user group. And if you would like to get in touch with me, at dbnuggets is my Twitter ID, and dbnuggets.com is my blog. Thank you so much once again for attending this session, and I'm sorry for having the interruptions in between.
All right, no problem. I greatly appreciate you being in. It was great information. Always one of those areas that every DBA, no matter what, we got to work on with TempDB, and we always have issues with. I love working on those query plans with temp spills and all this stuff, and it's like, TempDB, how can we get you better? So it was great hearing from you. So thank you very much for presenting for us today.
Thank you, Daniel.
Did anybody have any questions or comments? Give some people a moment in case they need to take themselves off mute.